Hi everybody, good afternoon. This is Jean here. Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for you. I'm in my sewing room and I have actually just finished my quilt top, my super easy beginner quilt that I have been doing. Let me see, this is about my 7th tutorial. Look over my shoulder how I've done my block, my super easy block, and this video to come is showing you how I put on my mitered border. Now, as you know, I'm using a patterned striped fabric. I had about 3 yards of it, and I was saying that I had gotten this fabric maybe 25 years ago, because I have a picture somewhere and I can't find it. I will find it, of our daughter in a dress. She's now almost 30. We always used to call them our curtain dresses. These sweet little prints here that I had used this border print on. I loved it so much back then. And I'm using it for this quilt. I found it. So this quilt, I have shown you how I made my blocks. And the only thing is, I'm showing you how to stabilize the bias on a block. If you're using bias, if you're cutting on the bias and making triangles, this is a super easy block. We don't have any templates. You don't need any rulers. It's just making a block and cutting it. And then I showed how I've attached the sashing and my cornerstones, the last video I did. And then this video is showing you how I'm putting my borders on with this striped pattern fabric here. So I get that look that goes all the way around. I will be showing you in the next week or so how I'm going to sandwich this and baste it, pin baste it on my kitchen table. You've seen me do that before, but this is a step-by-step little tutorial video tutorial playlist of how to do this from very beginning to I will be showing you how to quilt it. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to quilt it. Ian had a few ideas. I don't know if I agreed with them, but he'll be back in my sewing room. Ian will be back actually to showcase a few more sewing room tours. I do have your photographs and your stories, so if you have sent it, don't think, oh, we have forgotten it. We don't want to overload you guys with Ian. Right? So he will be back filming for, I believe it's Yogi's coming up. And then quite a few others have sent. So again, that's my husband Ian, who is showcasing and sharing your sewing space, whatever it is, whether it's a closet, whether it's a room, whether it's an entire studio. He really does enjoy seeing everybody's spaces. My husband is English, as you know, and he wafts on just so lovely poetically, somebody said, but he's really genuine. He really does enjoy it. So that's his little thing. He will be coming. And again, next week, Jen will be coming, my friend, and we will be, I don't know what we'll be filming. We'll just say hello to you guys, because I know some of you have missed her. But anyway, this video to come, the little tutorial to come, is how I do my mitered corners on this lovely scrap quilt. I'll be taking some whole pictures of it so you get an idea of what it looks like. If you haven't followed along, if this is your first, again, playlist parts 1 to about part 7 now. So I do hope you enjoy this video, folks. Thank you so very much for your time. And yeah, love from the Trueloves. Bye-bye. See ya. I'm working on my scrap quilt here, and it's come to the final stage for my quilt top to put on my outside borders, which, as you know, I have cut from my striped border, my striped fabric. From my last video, you'll see that all of the configurations that you can have, you could just have the gingham or the floral or 2 ginghams, but this is going to be my border. The blue gingham is going to go up next to my blocks. Now, I had said in my last video that I'm going to be putting on my border and I'm going to be mitering the corners of my quilt, which mean, let me just sort of, I had that pinned up. It's sort of, let me just see. It's going to be like that, with the florals coming up this way. This is just pinned, obviously. So what I'm going to do is, I know there's a mathematical way you do it, but I don't do it that way because I don't know math. I'm going to cut my top, my side. This is the top of the quilt because it's a narrow, long quilt. The length of my quilt sides, 2 of them. Okay, so I've cut my border fabric, and with enough fabric there, as you can see, to go way past. I cut it, I do it about 7 or 8 inches, well this was about 10 inches or so, past my block here, because my other border is about, what, about 6 inches wide. So the other border will come here. So on each end, I have a generous amount cut. I'm going to put on the 2 sides. You can see that. So here's my quilt end, and there's the size of my border. It's way wider than that border there. You see that? So I cut it generously, so I don't have to mess. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that on the both of that side, and then coming down, and I'll do it on this side down here. Okay? I'm ready to sew my borders on the sides of my quilt, on the long side of my quilt, and then I'll do the top and the bottom. So this is on the side. Now, as I was saying, I'm putting the pretty side of my border to the pretty side of my quilt top, and my border here measures about 5 inches wide, okay? Measures 5 inches wide. Well, I know I'm going to have from here up at least 5 inches for my top border, right? But I leave another 2 or 3 inches up here, so I don't have to be, so I can mess about with it, and I don't have to mess with it to make sure I have enough for my miter when we go across. So I'm going to start just sewing my border onto the side of my quilt. Again, most of my quilt has the blocks have been stay stitched. If you remember, that was on one of my videos. I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch seam, and I thought I was going to go up to the pink on this border, but I'm not. I'm just going to show a little bit of white. I think that's what's going to end up. I have a pretty straight line with the design of this fabric, meaning the pink sort of edging on the blue gingham. Again, I'm just laying this border. I'm just laying this fabric onto my quilt top here. I'm not pulling anything. I didn't really have to pin anything. I just cut this well long enough so I know I'll have enough when I get to the other end. And I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. So as you can see, I cut this piece way long. The end of my quilt is there. I'll just cut about this much off. And I know that when I put my other top border on, which I'll show you in a minute, this is how my side border looks. It'll make a nice miter. So I'm going to do my other side. Really nice. So I've sewn these side borders on. That's what I'm calling them. These right here with the blue. Now I've sewn them on, and I have left that tail up there all the way. This is the top of my blocks here. I've left the tail, and this is just pinned up. I'm doing the exact same thing. I have a piece of border, piece of stripe. Again, this is just if you're using stripes, that is longer than the width of my quilt now. Do you see that? It's 2 or 3 inches longer than the width of my quilt. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, pretty side to pretty side down here, and I'm going to start right at that corner there. I'm going to start right at that corner, right there, with my seam right there, and I'm going to go right across again right to that corner. Okay, so then I'll have all this flappy stuff there, and that's where the beauty of the miter comes in, and I'll show you that after I sew the top border on and my bottom border on. Sewing it right at that seam there where I've just sewn my other. Now I've just pinned it right there, and just to show you what I'm going to do to miter this, I've pinned it right at this intersection, and I've just pinned it just a few pins. You know I don't use a lot of pins, but just to give you the idea of where this is going. So when I, obviously pretty side to pretty side, okay? So when I've sewn this seam here, we end up with this, with these long tails, okay? And my blue gingham is going that way, one way there, and the blue gingham is going here. Again, it's just pinned, but I'm going to be taking this over to my ironing board, and I'm going to be folding my border back on itself to match that other border, and instantly, as you can see, with a little bit of folding and a little bit of messing about, I end up with, it's not perfect now because I have to go over to my ironing board, but I'm going to end up with a nice stripe border that's going to go right around my quilt top. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to sew it along the whole top of my quilt here. I'll hand wheel that right to that crease and then come right back like that. And then here is my lovely top border. And I'm going to bring my camera into where I iron, and you'll see how I sew the mitered corner. I am at my ironing table here, and as you can see, I've used a heavy finish starch. I really want to get my borders and the top of my quilt really nice and square and nice and flat and no stretching whatsoever. So I've used a heavy starch on this border. As you can see, that's really lovely and crisp. I have sewn my border, my top border on to this point here. Now, because I'm making a mitered corner, I want this stripe to go around my quilt. It's very easy the way I've done it. As you see, I have extra here and I have extra here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up, everything's nice and flat on my table. I'm going to pick up my border like so, and I'm going to line up, for my instance, I'm going to line up this gingham stripe here, and look at that right there, a little bit more, so I get this corner here. There. Pull this a little bit further. This is all going to be cut off. So what we're worried about is this point here, pink, my rose doesn't get. I'm going to hit it with some starch, and I'm going to iron that down. I'm just going to press that really crisp, really crisp. Again, I know there's a mathematical way to do this, but again, I just do it to the eye, and oh, that looks so nice. You see that? Now that is the seam that we're going to be sewing. Okay, this crease and underneath is the seam that we're going to be sewing. I'm going to pull back my border. I'm going to do this on all four corners. I'm going to pull back my border like so. I'm holding this down. Nothing has moved. Nothing has moved at all. You see that where that crease is? I'm going to take my pins, and I'm absolutely going to sew, picking it up gently. I'm going to sew right on that crease. That's exactly where the border is going to be sewn, and it's going to go right down to that corner bit there. So again, I'm back at my machine, and I'm looking at this crease to this point here where your stitches meet. I'm going to start at the top here, right on that crease. Just go slowly. pulling out my pins, I'm stitching right on that real nice crisp line that I've made. And I can feel where my intersection is right here. Hopefully it just goes right into that corner there. Pinch and pull. Don't worry about all this left over here. And there, let me show you. Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. There is my lovely, I'm going to go and iron it again. There is my lovely mitered corner. Now I know I've sewn on that seam. I've just pressed it again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my scissors, making sure these two are out of the way here, and 1/4 of an inch or a little bit long, bigger, whatever you want, like that. Take them away. That's going to be a dog ear up there. And then there I have my lovely mitered corner on the top of my quilt top. So this one, because as you can see, I'm going to do this the opposite way because it's a little bit easier. I'm starting at the intersection of my corner there, and I'm going out to the end of my border. So again, here is my third corner. I have my crease, and I have put my pins right on either side of that crease. I'm on my fourth and final corner. I've mitered my border, and as you can see, because two of your borders are going one way and two of your borders are going the other way, two of them you do from the outside in comfortably, and the other two you do from the corner of our inside seam out very carefully. I've pinned it, I've pulled out all of that fabric, and I find that intersection where my seam is, where both borders meet. I put my needle right there. Don't have it a hair below or a hair above, because then you'll get a funky corner. Just start slowly on my creased seam. Pull this up gently and trim off. My little sweet little quilt top is all finished with my lovely flowered border, which I really quite like, in the blue and white gingham. Yeah, I'm so pleased with it. I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. There's a tutorial how I've done it. My mitered corners here. This is what the video is. And my next, I will be showing how I'm going to be sandwiching it, backing it, sandwiching it, and quilting. And I think I'm just going to do an overall Thanks so much. Love from the Trueloves. Bye-bye.